is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Very good morning. You are watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. Well, in good news coming in for the month of March, India's retail inflation is now at nearly a 6-year low. We'll bring you those details and all the other top stories in the world of business and economy that we are tracking for you. This is Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's bring you all the top headlines that we're tracking for you this morning. India's retail inflation dips to almost a 6-year low at 3.34% in the month of March. Food, vegetable and pulses prices softening, leading the trend in dipping inflation. Meanwhile, the month of March also saw India's exports grow by 0.7%. However, deficit widens on account of oil and gold imports. Meanwhile, at $3,250 an ounce, gold prices globally climb to record high. And all the stories around Apple airlifting iPhones from India. Well, the value of the total iPhones that were airlifted from India heading to the US exceeded $2 billion in the month of March to beat Trump tariffs. Tata Consultancy Services gets 21 acres of land in Andhra Pradesh's VISAKHAPATNam at 99 paisa lease. Policy Bazaar's fintech arm PB gets payment aggregator license from the Reserve Bank of India. In a big development, market regulator SEBI has banned GENSOL and its promoters Anmol Singh Jaggi and Puneet Singh Jaggi from security market in a fund diversion case. Forensic audit to be initiated next. Former Finance Secretary and the former CEO of DIVERSION, AJAY PANDEY, has taken charge as the Vice President at Beijing-based AIIB, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. And India and the European Union are all set to hold the next rounds of free trade agreement talks starting May 12th. Let's start with the top story that we're tracking for you this morning, and this is by way of data that came in yesterday. Retail inflation in India has dipped marginally to nearly a 6-year low of 3.34% in the month of March, and this due to a decline in prices of vegetables, eggs and protein-rich items. This time raising hopes now for a third rate cut by the Reserve Bank of India as the inflation remains well below the maiden target of 4%. Now, the Consumer Price Index or CPI-based inflation was at 3.61% in February and 4.85% in March last year. The inflation rate in March this year, 2025, is the lowest that has been witnessed since August of 2019, when inflation was at 3.28% only. Now, according to data released by the National Statistics Office or NSO, retail food inflation in the month of March was at 2.69% compared to 3.75% in the month of February and as high as 8.52% in the month of March 2024. Meanwhile, WPI or wholesale price inflation has declined to a 6-month low of just 2% in March as prices of vegetables, and other food items have eased. Another set of government data disclosed this figure. Now, WPI-based inflation was at 2.38% in the month of February and it was at 0.26% in March last year. Now, remember, just last week, the Reserve Bank of India reduced the key short-term lending repo rate by 25 basis points in the wake of easing inflation. The Reserve Bank of India has projected CPI inflation for the current fiscal, which is 2025-26, at 4%, with Q1 at 3.6%, Q2 at 3.9%, Q3 at 3.8%, and Q4 at 4.4%. The National Statistics Office has said that the significant decline in headline inflation and food inflation during the month of March 2025 has mainly been attributed to decline in inflation of vegetables, eggs, pulses and products, as well as meat and fish, cereal and products, and milk and its products as well. Urban inflation, meanwhile, has increased marginally from 3.32% in February to 3.43% in the month of March. However, significant decline was observed in food inflation from 3.15% in February to 2.48% just last month. Further, there was decline in headline and food inflation in the rural sector. The headline inflation was 3.25% in March compared to 3.8% in the preceding month. Retail food inflation in the rural sector was at 2.82% in March, down from more than 4% in February. And another data coming in, India's merchandise exports showed a slight growth of just 0.7 of a percentage point on a year-on-year basis in the month of March, reaching $42 billion. This brought the total goods exported in FY25 to $437 billion. This is slightly higher than the previous year. However, a sharp rise in imports, up almost 11.3%, has led to major widening of trade deficit in the month of March, and that trade deficit has surged to $21.54 billion compared to just $14 billion in the month of February. Now, for the entire fiscal year, India's goods trade deficit expanded to $283 billion, up from just $241 billion in the last financial year, FY24. Now, despite global challenges, Commerce Secretary Sunil Bhatwal highlighted that India's exports had reached record highs in FY25. Oil imports played a major role, and this amounted to $19 billion in the month of March, the highest since May 2024. However, exports have contracted in 6 out of the 12 months of FY25 due to softer global petroleum prices and rising uncertainties, particularly with the US trade announcement since the month of Jan. Now, in response, the Commerce Department is working on a proposal to support e-commerce ports and those with warehouses abroad, including short-term credit solutions. India's total exports of goods and services combined for FY25 are projected to hit a record $821 billion, marking a 5.5% increase from the previous financial year. Now, despite challenges, India's exports of fruits and vegetables saw a 5.6%. Gold imports surged to $58 billion, up from just $45 billion in the previous fiscal year. Gold, meanwhile, has climbed above $3,250 per ounce for the first time today, surpassing Monday's all-time peak. US President Donald Trump yesterday went ahead with investigations into the need for levies on critical minerals, as per a Bloomberg report. Now, the precious yellow metal has climbed more than 20% this year as an escalating trade war creates anxiety over prospect of a global recession. Now, leading banks continue to remain optimistic about gold's prospects over the coming quarters as investors add to holdings in gold-backed ETF or exchange-traded funds, and central banks continue to accumulate the precious metal. Goldman Sachs has forecasted that prices will rally as much as up to $4,000 an ounce by mid-2026. Now, here in India, MCX spot price for gold as of yesterday's closing was at 92,822 rupees per 10 grams in Ahmedabad. Gold futures, meanwhile, with 5th June expiry, are trading at 93,493 rupees per 10 grams. And moving on now to another story which has been making headlines for almost a week now, and this comes by way of the airlifted supplies of Apple iPhones from India to the US. Now, Apple's main India suppliers, Foxconn and Tata Electronics, shipped nearly $2 billion worth of iPhones to the US in March. Now, this was at an all-time high as the US company airlifted devices to bypass President Donald Trump's impending tariffs. This as per a Reuters report citing customs data. The iPhone maker stepped up production in India and chartered cargo flights to ferry 600 tons of iPhones to the US to ensure sufficient inventory in one of its biggest markets on concern that Trump's tariffs would push up costs. Now remember, in April, the US administration imposed 26% duty on imports from India, much lower than the more than 100% that China was facing at that time. Trump has since paused most duties except for China for a period of 3 months. Now, Foxconn, which is Apple's main India supplier, exported smartphones worth $1.3 billion in March, its highest ever for a single month and equal to shipments for the entire January and February data combined. Now, this according to commercially available customs data, which Reuters has reportedly reviewed. Now, this included Apple iPhone 13, 14, 16 and 16e models and took Foxconn's total shipments from India to the US this year to $5.3 billion already. Now, exports from the other Apple supplier, Tata Electronics, stood at $612 million in the month of March, which is around 63% higher than the previous month and included iPhone 15 and 16 models. Now, customs data reviewed by Reuters showed all Foxconn shipments to the US in March were airlifted from Chennai Air Cargo Terminal and landed at various locations including Los Angeles and New York, with Chicago receiving the majority. Trump, remember, later granted exclusions from steep tariffs on smartphones and other electronics imported largely from China, but later indicated that those exemptions will likely be short-lived. Now, as per the Reuters report, to expedite shipments, Apple lobbied Indian airport authorities to cut the time needed to clear customs at Chennai Airport in Tamil Nadu to 6 hours, down from 30 hours. At least 6 cargo jets were used in the operation, which one source to Reuters described as a way to beat the tariffs. The Andhra Pradesh State Cabinet on Tuesday approved the allotment of as much as 21.16 acres of land to Tata Consultancy Services in Vishakhapatnam for a symbolic lease price of just 99 paisa. Now, Minister for IT and Electronics for the state, Nara Lokesh Naidu, said TCS would invest 1,370 crore rupees in development centers that would create around 12,000 jobs. The land at IT Hill number 3 at Rushikonda was leased to the tech giant for a symbolic sum similar to what Narendra Modi, then CM of Gujarat, charged Tata to set up its manufacturing plant at Sanand on the outskirts of Ahmedabad. Now, officials said that while TCS will take at least 2 years to construct a permanent building to house the development center, it will shortly start working from a rented place in the state. The state government is looking to create at least 5 lakh jobs in the IT sector in the next 5 years and is expecting other tech companies seeking to expand their facilities at Vishakhapatnam. India and the European Union have agreed to speed up their negotiations for a proposed free trade agreement, with the next round of talks set to begin on May 12th. Now, according to the Commerce Ministry, the 10th round of discussions focused on key areas such as market access in goods, services, investment, as well as government procurement. Additional Secretary in the Department of Commerce, L. Satya Srinivas, stated both sides are committed to speeding up the process. The 11th round is scheduled to run from May 12th to 16th. In addition, Srinivas confirmed that negotiations for a trade pact between India and the UK are also progressing, with both teams working to resolve several issues. He also highlighted that negotiations for a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, or CEPA, between India and South American nation Chile was launched on April 1st. Remember, Chile is India's 5th largest trading partner in Latin America, with a bilateral trade value of $3.6 billion. Earlier this month, India also concluded its 7th round of talks with Peru, marking a major step as this would be India's first FTA in the Latin American and Caribbean region. Former Finance Secretary and NFRA Chairperson Ajay Pandey has taken charge as Vice President of Investment Solutions at the Beijing-headquartered Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Now, Pandey will oversee three key departments: the Sectors, Themes and Finance Solutions Department, or STF, the Sustainability and Fiduciary Solutions Department, or SFD, and the Portfolio Management Department, PMD, according to an update on the AIIB website. Last month, he retired as the chairperson of the National Financial Reporting Authority, or NFRA. He had also served as Finance Secretary and Unique Identification Authority of India, or UIDAI, popularly known as Aadhaar, its CEO, among other positions. Now, prior to joining AIIB in April, he served in prominent leadership roles within the government of India over 3 decades. He played a pivotal role in shaping India's digital and financial infrastructure through transformative initiatives such as Aadhaar, the UPI, GSTN, or the Goods and Services Tax Network, and the National Infrastructure Pipeline. Pandey holds a PhD in computer science from the University of Minnesota, USA, and a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from IIT Kanpur. Well, time for a short break now, but coming up on the other side, markets would open and we'll bring you all that is in store for you in today's trading session. You are watching Morning Brief at 9.
Smash your way to glory at the News 9 Corporate Badminton Championship. Get ready for the ultimate badminton showdown. News 9 presents the biggest corporate championship, a battle of skill, speed and supremacy. Cash prize of 6 lakh rupees across categories. Venue, Pulela Gopichand Badminton Academy, Hyderabad. Dates, May 9th to May 11th. A chance to showcase your talent and make a mark. The court is set. Are you ready? Register now.
What a save! What a save!
I need expert savings. I need my carrier.
Bharat welcomes the world to a new era of creativity. Waves, World Audio Visual and Entertainment Summit. Connecting creators through Creatosphere. Wave Accelerator. Waves Bazaar.
Where stories, ideas and content go global.
Connecting countries through global media dialogue and Bharat Pavilion.
Shaping narratives and partnerships. Culture, cinema, gaming. Waves fuels the next wave of entertainment.
Connecting creators, connecting countries. Waves 2025.
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every scene, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Welcome back. You are watching Morning Brief at 9. The markets have opened just a couple of minutes ago, and let's bring you the mood check on the Indian markets. After yesterday's rally of almost 2%, it seems to be a gap down opening in trade this morning. Sensex and Nifty both in the red, marginally in the red. Well, this could very well be profit taking on account of the rise that we saw. Sensex, remember, closed almost 1,600 points up in trade yesterday. But Sensex and Nifty both down almost between 0.1 and 0.2%. Sensex still well comfortably above the 76,600 mark. Nifty inching at around 23,300 odd levels in trade this morning. Better news coming from the mid-cap and small-cap space. Small-cap is up about 0.3 of a percentage point. Mid-cap performing almost in the opposite direction of Nifty 50, up about 0.1% as Nifty is down 0.15%. Let's look at the heat map of the Nifty 50 and try and make sense of which are the sectors that seem to be problematic today. Well, problem seems to be emerging, at least in early trade, from the IT pack, where Infi and HCL are both down, nearing perhaps that 1% down level in trade. This could very well be profit taking on account of the surge that these stocks witnessed yesterday. Meanwhile, a flattish day for the banking sector, barring HDFC Bank, which is up significantly, up about 0.7%. This could very well be the fact that HDFC yesterday announced that its net margin earnings are likely to improve. The net interest margins are likely to improve on account of the transmission of rates cut by the RBI. Meanwhile, in the auto space, Maruti is down about 1.4%. Tata Motors is down about 0.8%. Remember, Tata Motors at one point yesterday rallied nearly 6% after there was news that Donald Trump would pause traffics. Well, we are still waiting for that announcement from the White House and any further announcement on tariffs, which could act as a trigger for the markets one way or another. Meanwhile, let's look at Asian markets and try and make sense of how Asian markets are reacting. Again, it seemed to be a sort of a mixed queue yesterday with Hang Seng and Shanghai Composite inching down. But today seems to be a bit of a down day for Asian markets. Remember, Hang Seng, which was under pressure yesterday, is under tremendous pressure today as well, down about 2.5% in trade. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei, South Korea's Kospi, Taiwan's TAIEX all registering some declines. Taiwan is down about 1.8% or so, and this could again be perhaps the impending policy change that Donald Trump could announce potentially on electronics, semiconductors, and the tariffs that would apply to that sector. So we will, of course, keep tracking these markets for you as and when there is a major movement. But meanwhile, let's move to another interesting story that we're tracking for you this morning, and a pretty shocking one, and this comes from market regulators SEBI, that yesterday barred GENSOL Engineering and its promoters Anmol Singh Jaggi and Puneet Singh Jaggi from the securities market till further orders. And this is in a fund diversion and corporate governance lapse case. Now, the regulator has also debarred Anmol Singh Jaggi and Puneet Singh Jaggi from holding the position of a director of key managerial personnel in GENSOL until further orders. Now, further, the market watchdog directed GENSOL Engineering Limited to put on hold the stock split announced by it. The order came after SEBI received a complaint in June 2024 relating to the manipulation of share price and diversion of funds from GENSOL Engineering Limited, and thereafter started examining the matter. Remember, GENSOL has also been embroiled in controversy over supplying electric vehicles to the promoter-owned other startup called Blue Smart, which has since stated that it will move its fleet to Uber. Now, coming back to the GENSOL case, in a 9-page interim order, SEBI has said that prima facie findings have shown misutilization and diversion of funds of the company in a fraudulent manner by its promoters, who are the direct beneficiaries of diverted funds. Now, the funds that we are talking about are fairly enormous. There seems to have been a 6 crore rupee transfer to Anmol and Puneet Singh Jaggi's mother. In addition, golf set purchased for 26 lakh rupees from the company's money. Now, the company has, as per SEBI, attempted to mislead the market regulator and credit rating agencies, the lenders and investors as well, by submitting forged conduct letters purportedly issued by its lenders. Now, the notices by the SEBI order, which is GENSOL, Anmol and Puneet Singh Jaggi, have alleged to have violated the provisions of the Prohibition of Fraudulent and Unfair Trade Practices rules. SEBI noted that the promoters were running a listed company as if it were a proprietary firm. GEL's funds were routed to related parties and used for unconnected expenses as if the company's funds were, to quote SEBI, the promoters' piggy banks. The results of these transactions would mean that the diversion at some time need to be written off from GENSOL's books, ultimately resulting in losses to investors of the company. SEBI also directed the firm to appoint a forensic auditor to examine the books of accounts of GENSOL and its related parties. And now on to a News 9 exclusive. Well, News 9 has the honor today of being joined by one of Germany's largest healthcare insurance providers. We have with us Dr. Christoph Straub joining us here on News 9. Dr. Straub, thank you so much, sir, for taking out time and being here with us all the way from Germany on News 9. I want to first understand from you that for the Indian audience who's not really familiar with Germany, how does the German healthcare system work, especially statutory health insurance, and what role does BARMER play? Explain to our viewers, please.
Well, the German healthcare system is a system based on the solidarity principle. So healthcare insurance offers a comparatively comprehensive benefit package for all injuries, which is independent of pre-existing conditions or income. And the BARMER is one of the largest insurers in the field. We are covering well over 8 million people in Germany, and we have been in operation for more than 140 years.
All right. Well, that is, of course, some legacy, Dr. Straub. But what I was reading when I was doing a little bit of research on BARMER, BARMER is pretty much known for its strong focus on digitization and digital services. Now, which of your digital approaches could potentially serve as an inspiration for public health programs in developing countries like India? And mind you, India itself has a fairly strong and robust digital ecosystem penetrating almost every sector, insurance being no exception.
Many digital services available. We are focusing on reliable and useful digital services, and it's a main feature of our customer service as BARMER. We offer a wide range of online services, as for example, online certificates, telemedical care, electronic patient records, and apps supporting a healthy lifestyle.
All right. Of course, supporting healthy lifestyle is absolutely critical. What is also critical, Dr. Straub, is the factor of trust and transparency. When you talk about health insurance, these two T's, trust and transparency, are key to the relationship between the insurers and the insured. So please tell us, what does BARMER do to promote a patient-centered and a reliable approach to service?
Well, BARMER does attach great importance to data security and data protection. All our online services in this respect meet the strictest technical criteria as required by law. At the same time, transparency, keeping the insured informed about decision processes and decisions, is our primary goal. Well, we do both. We do rely on safe and protected services, and we want to keep our customers informed about what we are doing.
All right. Of course, keeping customers informed is one part, but there's a growing trend, Dr. Straub, and this growing trend is about linking healthcare provision with insurance. And this is something that we are seeing in India and we are seeing across the world, that there is now a focus on prevention and patient outcomes. And this is gaining international attention. So as Germany's largest healthcare provider, how does BARMER view such integrated care models?
BARMER has supported case and disease management models for many years and offers integrated healthcare, for example, for patients with diabetes or certain kinds of cancer, to improve both health quality of care and health outcomes. special preventive services, for example, for children and young people, which include vaccinations, age-adapted screenings and checkups. We do also offer them for older people, but we have them for children, younger people, and for older people. Preventive services are a very important feature of our benefit package.
All right, of course, prevention better than cure, as the old adage goes. But my final question to you, Dr. Straub, that there's a flurry of international students and skilled professionals, including from countries like India, who are looking at building their careers in Germany. So how is Barmer supporting their access to Germany's healthcare system?
Well, first of all, we do warmly welcome international professionals and students coming to Germany, and we do offer them English language advice and counseling, as well as welcome services, digital onboarding processes, our customer app. But our goal is to provide international customers with easy and secure access to the German healthcare system.
All right, Dr. Straub, thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on News 9 for this exclusive chat with you. Pleasure having you on this morning. And moving on now to the global stories that we are tracking for you this morning. Let's get you all the global headlines. China orders airlines to halt Boeing jet deliveries and aircraft part purchases in retaliation to steep US tariffs on Chinese goods. China also accuses US of cyber attacks during Asian Winter Games, names NSA agents and US universities in hacking investigation. Trump administration launches national security probes into drug and chip imports, setting stage for potential new tariffs on both sectors. Meanwhile, US stocks end slightly lower as tariff uncertainty drives market volatility, with Boeing dropping after China's delivery halt and Ford GM both hit by tariff concerns, while bank earnings provide some support. Citigroup and Bank of America surpass Wall Street profit estimates as volatile markets boost stock trading revenue, but uncertainty over tariffs threatens the economic outlook. Trump administration freezes $2.3 billion in federal funding to Harvard University after it rejects demands over anti-Semitism concerns, with the university defending its stance on academic freedom and autonomy. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg takes the stand in US antitrust trial over allegations that Instagram and WhatsApp acquisitions were aimed at eliminating competition, with the Federal Trade Commission seeking to force to restructure or sale of both the platforms. Meanwhile, Honda considers shifting CR-V and HR-V production to the US from Canada and Mexico, aiming for 90% local output as auto tariffs push strategic overhaul. And staying with the auto sector, Nissan to cut production of top-selling Rogue SUV in Japan amid Trump's auto tariffs as car maker reassesses supply chains and faces output disruptions at key plant. These stories and more on the other side. You are watching Morning Brief at 9.
My dear cool. ये एयर कंडीशनर नहीं, AI कंडीशनर है।
Beyond better, the new Tiguan R line. Volkswagen.
Smash your way to glory at the News 9 Corporate Badminton Championship. Get ready for the ultimate badminton showdown. News 9 presents the biggest corporate championship, a battle of skill, speed and supremacy. Cash prize of 6 lakh rupees across categories. Venue, Pulela Gopichand Badminton Academy, Hyderabad. Dates, May 9th to May 11th. A chance to showcase your talent and make a mark. The court is set. Are you ready? Register now.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Welcome back. You are watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's bring you all the global stories that we are tracking for you this morning. Now, in a sharp escalation of trade tensions, China has reportedly ordered its airlines to stop taking further deliveries of Boeing jets. According to Bloomberg News, the move comes in direct response to US's decision to impose a staggering 145% tariff on all Chinese goods. The order deals a blow to Boeing, which considers China one of its most important growth markets, though it's a space now largely dominated by European rival Airbus. Shares of Boeing dropped around 2% in early trading yesterday following this development. Now, China's top 3 carriers, Air China, China Eastern and China Southern, have been set to receive new Boeing jets between 2025 and 2027, but those deliveries are now in jeopardy. Moreover, China is also going further, reportedly asking airlines to halt purchases of aircraft-related equipment and spare parts from US firms, a move that could push up maintenance costs for American jets still flying in China. And staying with China, the country has accused the United States of launching cyber attacks targeting its essential industries during the Asian Winter Games in February, condemning the act as malicious cyber behavior. Listen in.
During the 9th Asian Winter Games, the US government launched a cyber attack on the event's information system and critical information infrastructure in Heilongjiang province, causing serious damage to China's critical information infrastructure, national defense, finance, society, production, and citizens' personal information security. The nature of this is extremely bad. China condemns the aforementioned malicious cyber behavior of the US government.
And continuing with our coverage of Trump tariffs, well, the Trump administration is moving closer to imposing tariffs on key sectors, including pharmaceuticals and semiconductors. According to a Federal Register filing, the government is pushing forward with investigations into imports of both industries under national security concerns. This marks a crucial step towards potentially imposing new tariffs. More details in this report.
Drug makers and chip firms may not escape US tariffs much longer. The two sectors are currently exempt, but Washington is now proceeding with probes into both, setting the stage for more actions on trade. That's according to Federal Register filings on Monday. They show that the probes began on April 1st under the so-called Section 232 provision. That gives the administration 270 days to wrap up an investigation. Speaking Monday, Trump himself indicated the likely outcome.
We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all they have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in.
Trump has already used the 232 provision to look into imports of copper and lumber. During his first term, he used it as the basis for tariffs on steel and other goods then rolled out in his second term. Last week, he exempted smartphones and some other goods from steep extra levies. But he later said the exemption would be short-lived, just lasting while Washington conducted a probe. Trump also promised to announce chip tariffs this week. Drug makers have lobbied Washington to phase in any new duties, saying they need time to shift manufacturing. Big players in the sector have global production operations and could take years to move output to the US. One analyst told Reuters that tariffs on pharmaceuticals could now be announced in mid-May and predicted they could reach 85%. Trump's on-off trade measures have roiled financial markets and prompted banks to cut US growth predictions. Tuesday saw shares in Asian automakers surge after Trump hinted they could get some relief from 25% tariffs on the sector. He said that the industry needed time to adapt. Shares in Toyota, Mazda and other big names were up over 4% in afternoon trade.
All right, so let's move on now to the U.S. stock markets, which ended yesterday slightly lower as concerns over tariff uncertainty pressured the market. Shares of consumer and healthcare companies saw declines, while earnings report from major banks helped provide some support. Now, specifically in the auto sector, shares of Ford and General Motors closed lower after Barclays lowered its rating on the U.S. autos and mobility sector. Take a look.
U.S. stocks ended slightly lower on Tuesday, with the Dow dipping more than 0.33%, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ each fell marginally. All three indexes began the session with gains before turning negative by early afternoon. So why the flip-flop? Eric Ditton, president and managing director of the Wealth Alliance, said stocks continued to take their cues from the commander-in-chief.
You want to talk about flip-flopping? Trump tariffed. He untariffed, he re-tariffed, and he partially untariffed and said, I could flip that again. All right, that's a flip-flop. So how do you invest money and have a long-term strategy when the rules are changing almost daily? Any rally that I see, I don't really believe in until we can get something more concrete on policy and a resolution of these tariffs.
Among Tuesday's stock moves, shares of Boeing fell more than 2% after Bloomberg reported that China told its airlines not to take further deliveries of Boeing jets in response to President Trump's 145% tariff on Chinese goods. Bank of America and Citigroup provided more upbeat bank earnings, with shares of both closing higher. Lenders have warned, however, that tariff turmoil could upend deal-making and consumer spending in the months ahead. Shares of Ford and General Motors closed lower after Barclays downgraded the U.S. autos and mobility sector, saying that Trump's tariffs could pressure automakers' earnings. And shares of Netflix gained nearly 5% after the Wall Street Journal reported that the streaming giant plans to double its revenue by 2030, with its sights set on a $1 trillion market cap.
Few Netflix there eyeing $1 trillion market cap. But let's stay with other American companies, especially the banking sector. Citigroup and Bank of America exceeded Wall Street's profit expectations for the first quarter, benefiting from a surge in client activity amid volatile markets. Citigroup in particular saw a 23% increase in stock trading revenue, leading to a nearly 4% rise in its shares on Tuesday. Take a look.
Two more Wall Street banks posted strong quarterly results Tuesday as they benefited from volatile markets in the first 3 months of the year. Citigroup and Bank of America topped estimates for first quarter profit on a surge in stock trading. Investors rejigged their portfolios during a period of heightened uncertainty over President Donald Trump's tariffs and the emergence of Chinese startup DeepSeek's low-cost AI model. Shares of Citigroup, which posted 23% higher stock trading revenue, rose as much as almost 4% Tuesday morning. Shares of Bank of America, which posted its highest markets revenue in more than a decade, jumped as much as 5.5% in morning trading. While industry earnings rose, executives warned that U.S. tariff policies cast a shadow over the economic outlook. Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser said the bank continues to, quote, help our clients navigate an uncertain environment. Citigroup's chief financial officer said the uncertainty was putting downward pressure on the outlook for growth, adding that the bank increased its provisions for loan losses, but so far borrowers' delinquencies are within expectations. Executives at B of A said its research team at this point does not believe there will be a recession, and clients continue to show encouraging signs. However, they pointed to the uncertainty over tariffs and the future path of the economy.
Now, in a major move, the United States government has announced a freeze on $2.3 billion in federal funding to the university just hours after the university rejected multiple demands from the Trump administration, including requests from the Department of Education. The freeze, or the funding freeze, comes after the Trump administration said last month it was reviewing the $9 billion in federal contracts and grants to Harvard. More details in this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Monday it was freezing $2.3 billion in federal funding to Harvard. The move came hours after the university rejected numerous demands from the Department of Education, which Harvard President Alan Garber wrote in a letter would allow the federal government to, quote, control the Harvard community and threaten the school's values. The funding freeze comes after the Trump administration said last month it was reviewing $9 billion in federal contracts and grants to Harvard. That's part of a crackdown on what it says is anti-Semitism that erupted on college campuses during pro-Palestinian protests over the past 18 months. The administration has already frozen hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding for numerous universities. It's pressing institutions to make policy changes, citing what it says is a failure to fight anti-Semitism on campus. Deportation proceedings have begun against some detained foreign students who took part in pro-Palestinian demonstrations, while visas for hundreds of other students have been canceled. In a letter on Friday, the Education Department stated that Harvard had, quote, failed to live up to both the intellectual and civil rights conditions that justify federal investment. Harvard agreed in January to provide additional protections for Jewish students. And Garber said in his letter that while the university is taking steps to address anti-Semitism on campus, quote, these ends will not be achieved by assertions of power unmoored from the law to control teaching and learning at Harvard and to dictate how we operate. To ease any funding crunch created by a cutoff in federal funding, Harvard is working to borrow $750 million from Wall Street.
And staying with the United States, Meta Platform CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand in an antitrust trial, facing claims from U.S. regulators that the company spent billions to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp in a bid to eliminate Facebook's competitors. The Federal Trade Commission is seeking to force Meta to either restructure or sell off the two popular platforms, a move that could have major implications for the tech giant. Take a look.
Meta Platforms CEO Mark Zuckerberg took the stand in a Washington, D.C. courtroom on Monday. In a trial over government allegations, the social media giant built an illegal monopoly. The high-stakes antitrust case involves Meta's acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp for billions of dollars. The Federal Trade Commission is seeking to force Meta to restructure or sell Instagram and WhatsApp. That poses an existential threat to Meta, which by some estimates earns about half its U.S. advertising revenue from Instagram. While on the stand, Zuckerberg sought to defend against allegations his company bought Instagram and WhatsApp to eliminate competition. The FTC has pointed to emails in which Zuckerberg proposed acquiring Instagram as a way to neutralize a potential Facebook competitor, and expressed worry that encrypted messaging service WhatsApp could grow into a social network. How users spend time on social media and which services they consider interchangeable will be core to the case. Meta will argue that an increase in traffic to Instagram and Facebook during TikTok's brief shutdown in the US in January shows direct competition. The FTC has argued that platforms where users broadcast content to strangers based on shared interests, such as TikTok, are not interchangeable. The trial, which is expected to stretch into July, is part of a crackdown on big tech, started during Trump's first administration. Amazon, Apple, and Alphabet's Google also face antitrust lawsuits by U.S. antitrust enforcers. Several major tech companies have moved to align more with Trump, such as rolling back diversity initiatives and having executives engage directly with the White House. But that has not resulted in a pullback on the antitrust cases.
And now moving on to Japanese car maker Honda, which is now considering a change in its car production strategy with plans to move some manufacturing from Mexico and Canada to the US. Now, according to a report, the Japanese automaker is aiming for 90% of its cars sold in the US to be made locally. The move comes as the Trump administration's new auto tariffs push foreign car makers to reassess their supply. And well, we will actually leave the morning brief at that because we have a very interesting partnership that TV9 network is proud to be associated with. And this is the London Business School's India Conclave 2025. It is happening live in Mumbai today. And we will now cut across to the we're getting from that event. Mr. John Nikhil, Head of Political and Bilateral Affairs at British Deputy High Commission, is speaking live.
Out of this day, there could be new business ventures, new partnerships, new jobs. So I think very excited to be here with you all. And I think you've already just seen the strength of UK education in the leaders we have from LBS. I think the biggest strength of UK education is its internationalization. The fact that 72 of the top 200 most international institutions in the world are in the UK. That the UK brings